Okay, Professor, I know you probably haven't had a chance to look at the redacted document, but no doubt some very key issues and names and details have been blacked out.
That's absolutely right. I've been able to look at the first few pages just before we went on the air. It just basically has become public in the last few minutes. And what we see here is a pretty compelling case to be made that there is a lot of classified information that has been in the president's possession, despite laws requiring it to be turned over to the government. As you mentioned, the things that are being blacked out are the sort of things that could compromise the ongoing investigation. The names of the investigators, the names of potential witnesses, all of these sorts of things are not going to be made public at this point for obvious reasons, because the people who've already been identified as being involved in these things, as we've seen from the January 6 hearings, are subject to a lot of abuse from the president's fans.
Right, and if they were to have an unredacted version, doesn't that set a very difficult precedent, Professor, in terms of people who had information or have information, whistleblowers even, might never want to come forward if their names are going to be released publicly?
Well, that's absolutely true. If you look at the kind of difficulty that the people who've gone public with their comments and things that they've witnessed with the former president, it's pretty clear that there's already a very powerful incentive not to come forward. And if this information in this redacted document had been made public, why then the cost would have been even higher. I think that one of the things that is really important to recognize is people are taking a lot of risks in terms of their reputation, their personal safety, whether they're going to be doxxed or attacked online or some other way. And so it is really important, if you're going to investigate, that the sources of your information are kept private, particularly in the early stages when they're building the case.
Here's the thing, though, from the Trump perspective, having a heavily redacted affidavit released, does that not play into his favor? Because then in typical Trumpian fashion, he can spin it to say, well, look, they're hiding things.
Well, it's pretty clear who's been hiding things. We have a whole history of the efforts of the FBI to try to obtain this information, and the National Archives before that. So there is this record. But obviously, Donald Trump will spin things as he sees fit, and there are significant numbers of people in the country who will believe Trump regardless of what he says and whether that squares with the evidence that's out there. But I think that one of the things that's important to notice about this story is how quiet a lot of Republicans have become as more and more information about this story has been released. The original argument that this was somehow an abuse of power by the FBI, which, by the way, can't get a warrant under U.S. law unless a judge authorizes it, that kind of narrative has really disappeared from a lot of the mainstream Republican voices going forward. And so I think one of the things that is very clear over the last several weeks in this story has been that among particularly elected officials on the Republican side, there's been a greater hesitation than ever before not to come to the immediate full-throated defense of the former president.
All right, we will continue to watch this story unfold. Political science professor Stephen Farnsworth, thank you.